This is what Sonic was always meant to be. Over the years, I never considered myself a massive Sonic fan. Sonic was not part of my childhood like it was for many others, and as I did play the games over time, I found most of them to be on some level of mediocre or just outright terrible. However, there was always one that stood leagues above the rest. Sonic Unleashed is legendary, to say the least. A true one-of-a-kind experience. It was at the time Sega and Sonic Team's last-ditch effort to make something for Sonic after the commercial and critical failure of Sonic's Big Outing in 2006. And oh man, did it very much deliver. A game that succeeds and excels in so many areas. A game that truly changed some of my philosophies on game design in general. A genuine masterclass in game design and replay value that few others can replicate. One of the best games ever made, even. Sonic's magnum opus. I love this game a lot. But why exactly is that? What strings does this game pull that puts it leagues above most other games for me, both as a platformer and an action game? Before we jump into why that is, I want to point out that I have very much completed this game, and I've gathered every achievement on Series X. Something I very much plan to do again at some point with the PS3 version. This was my 5th time playing through this game fully, and unless stated otherwise, all footage captured for this video was recorded via the fan-made recompiled port with no mods enabled. Well, except for this one that replaces the battle theme with "The Time Has Come" from DMC4. It's so sick. Also spoilers, I guess. With all that out of the way, let's get started. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you Sonic Unleashed.
Here we go!
The day stages in Sonic Unleashed are a speedrunner's paradise. The day stages bring upon an evolution of the gameplay systems found in Sonic Rush for the DS, that being the boost system. I also feel that they can also be considered an evolution of the Mach speed segments from Sonic 06 to some extent too. You fill up this meter by doing actions such as defeating enemies, collecting rings, and even drifting, and it can then be used to drastically increase Sonic's speed, or to boost his speed if you will. Despite what many people will try to tell you, the boost isn't an automatic win button. A system that, while simple in concept, is very much rich in depth, as this mechanic marks a massive divide between casual play and mastered execution of the stage design. With great power comes great responsibility, as careless use of it can lead to disastrous results. Side note, as a former musician, I have to wonder what the sheet music for this looked like. That's also not to mention the various different maneuvers these stages have, offering variation to said boosting. Grind rails, sliding, QTEs, skydiving, lane switching, and attacking enemies while doing so, bobsledding, as well as the many moves that Sonic can unlock such as the stomp, wall jumping, air boosting, and the ring dash. These mechanics make all of the day stages feel vastly unique from each other. One thing I don't think I've ever seen anybody mention with Sonic's abilities is just how well they are implemented into the game's progression and stages overall. The game will introduce you to the ability, show you how it works, and then you play a stage that implements the new move you obtained. For example, when you unlock the stomp, you then play a stage that revolves around using it to stomp on things. Another example being later when you unlock the ring dash, you are then presented with obstacles pertaining to it. These abilities also add some replay value, as they sometimes contain sections that you would be unable to get through on your first playthrough, thus needing you to come back when you unlock the proper ability to do so. An excellent example of which being on Rooftop Run. When you first get here, you are forced to do this platforming segment on the clock tower. However, returning here later with the ring dash allows you to skip it. All of these mechanics combined with the boost make for level design that I find to have very high skill ceilings to accomplish, while also creating rich replay value in part due to just how fun they are on top of that. Despite that, these stages are still very much enjoyable on a casual level, which is another reason as to why I think these stages are so well designed. This is legit the only Sonic game I've played where I actually have fun going fast in it. Most, if not every other Sonic game, going fast always felt very automated to some extent, no matter how much I like or dislike the process of doing so. Helps too that this was and still is the fastest Sonic has ever been in a game. Actual speed of light. Dude is reaching actual cannon speed in this game. Here, I am Sonic. I am speed. some of the sickest shit I've ever seen. I think what helps in that regard for me too are the many voice clips from Sonic you hear throughout these stages. For me, this adds so much life to the already incredibly well-designed stages. Even Sonic is having a blast going through them. Another being the boost meter in general and just how stylized it is. I don't know about y'all, but I always thought that the phrase ring energy was so unbelievably raw. Ring energy! Hell, I even just love the boost from an aesthetic and visual standpoint as well. The sound it makes when activated, that shockwave effect that appears on screen when doing so, as well as the fact the music becomes hella distorted when using it, are all things that make the boost even more crazy, addictive, and electrifying for me. One thing that many people complain about with the day stages in this game, however, is that Sonic Team mapped the homing attack button to the same button as boost. In my eyes, I always believed that this design was intentional. I think that this was put in as a sort of safety net to prevent players from unintentionally killing themselves, as if the game detects something to lock onto, whether that be something like a spring or an enemy, the game will perform that homing attack instead of the titular boost. I also believe that this works well in the sense that if you're boosting in these stages, your thumb would naturally already be on the button you would also use to do a homing attack. So when the time comes, you just briefly release the gas, press the button to do the homing attack, or homing attacks plural, and then go back to holding it for boost. I admit for first timers this might seem like a strange design choice, but as you get used to it, it honestly feels very nice to use. However, if you don't like it, you can always map it to the same button as jump, using a cheat code that Recompiled has built in. I've also seen people complain about how Sonic's drift works in this game. I don't know about you, but using the drift not only feels super responsive to me, but I also feel like a fucking badass when I use it. As I mentioned earlier, the drift is another move in Sonic's kit that adds variation to the level design, and the wide arc that it takes makes it insanely satisfying to pull off for me. Also because you can do this. You can also just not use it if you don't want to, but I wouldn't advise that. Speaking of which, you all know that one stage in Savannah Citadel that everybody complains about? Yeah, here's me beating it without using drift. Okay, so dead ass, I was gonna make a point here saying that the drift is a required mechanic in perfecting these stages, as a means of being able to take some of these turns effectively. But then I sort of got an S rank on the stage when trying to prove my point, so I don't know, man, this stage is weird and cursed and shit, so hey, that doesn't change my point regardless. I'd still advise using the drift whenever possible though. Another thing I see people complain about is the existence of 2D sections, a complaint that I never understood. This game especially. To me, regardless if a section was in 2D or 3D, you'd still be executing sick platforming sections while boosting. I'm still having a blast doing it either way. If anything, I'd make the argument that the 2D sections to Unleash can be a lot more involved than the 3D sections are, if I'm gonna be honest. Regardless of any of that though, at the end of the day, this is easily, and I mean easily, the best bass Sonic has ever felt to play. The excellently crafted and addicting level design keeps me coming back for more to try and improve my times. Mastering these stages will have you going from doing shit like this. Huh? I'm sorry, what? My man got came on and he died! to doing shit like this. It's so beautiful. It's a damn shame that Sonic Team would never try adapting this gameplay format ever again. Maybe it's for the best that they didn't, as for all we know, maybe it would have just been massively watered down compared to this game. We'll sadly never know. But regardless, what we have here is still pretty peak. After a long jog out in the sun will set, signifying the end of the day, and the nighttime moon will come up to take its turn. Oh god, it's a Sonic fan's worst nightmare. Sonic games! When nighttime strikes, so does Sonic the Werehog. He is vengeance. He is the night. He is Sonic the Werehog. Something new, something bold, yet to this day, or night if you will, still remains highly divisive for many fans. I always enjoyed these stages. Hell, I'd even go as far as to say that they're amazing actually. Unlike the day stages, these nighttime stages consist of action game style combat rather than the faster paced gameplay Sonic is known for. And despite that, the Werehog is much more similar to base Sonic than you might realize. Now before I jump into the combat, I want to talk about something that I rarely ever see anybody mention with the Werehog, and that's the platforming aspect. Just like the day stages, variations of platforming mechanics are presented to the player. Ledge grabbing, balance beams, poles used for swinging and climbing, loose puzzle solving, etc. A bit that I'll see people praise here and there is the Clock Tower and Rooftop Run, but I want to also give a shout out to stages like Cool Edge and Savannah Citadel for being just as dope. All this might not sound very interesting on paper when compared to the day stages, especially since a good majority of players tend to find that these stages can take a really long time to complete, something I myself also used to believe. However, that could not be further from the truth.
So how long was that stage? Yeah, 30 minutes? What? Dude, what the fuck? I remember stage being so much fucking longer. Okay, yeah, no. Whenever the fuck it was I complained about the Werehog stages being too long, no, absolutely not. They're not long in the slightest. Ah, dude, yeah. I remember that being like an hour-long stage. That's a half-hour-long stage. Jesus Christ, dude.
First playthrough, it makes sense that they would take much longer than the day stages, especially that first night stage in Apodos when you don't really have many moves at your disposal yet. But once you unlock more moves and learn these stages like the back of your hand, they can be just as fun as the day stages are. There's arguably just as high a skill ceiling for these stages as the day ones. Anyway, now the combat. I know a lot of people will point out games like Devil May Cry and God of War as inspirations, but to me, the Werehog honestly reminds me more of games like Ninja Gaiden, God Hand, hell, even something like Tekken. Reasons being that, like the Werehog, they also have fast-paced level design and combat, as well as their use of string-based input systems. Of course, not to the same level of complexity, but still. At the end of the day, or night if you will, no matter how you slice it, the Werehog's combat is derived from the action game genre. And despite the comparisons I just made, I think calling the Werehog an outright or watered-down clone of some of these games is very disrespectful, especially considering the amount of unique things that the Werehog has on offer. What exactly do I mean by string-based input systems also? What I would define as such are moves being inputted in a certain sequence that ultimately triggers a much more impactful move at the end of the sequence. Like I said, you don't really have many options at the start of the game, but as the game goes on, you unlock some seriously sick shit. It's genuinely shocking to me just how much the Werehog has at its disposal combat-wise. Like, dude, the Werehog can do a fucking Azuna drop, dude. That's so sick. I think it's also important to note that a good amount of the Werehog's moves you unlock also make for excellent means of traversal and platforming, which definitely drives home my point from earlier that the Werehog isn't slow in the slightest. You can also activate an install state known as Unleash. This makes you immune to hit stun, gives you infinite block meter, and makes your attacks much faster and stronger. It's fucking awesome. Only problem with it is that it cannot be cancelled once activated, and that meter can also go down during cutscenes. There are cheats on Recomp that alleviates this, however. As I mentioned, the Werehog can also block using this meter. Outside of using it to clip out of bounds, I admittedly don't get much application out of this. Really just the mini-bosses, as well as those robots that shoot at you. Another aspect of these encounters are the various ways that the Werehog can interact with the arena they are provided to. An excellent example being these water barrels and Shamar. You can throw them at these burning mage enemies, making them safer to attack, as attacking them while they're on fire can hurt pretty bad. Another great example are these guys in Holoska that let you spew out both fire and ice respectively. They are used for some loose puzzle solving elements, and are also effective in clearing out waves of enemies faster. Something like being able to grab enemies, whether it be the small fry or the standard enemies, and then spin them around, or just outright hurl them at other enemies, definitely gives the Werehog some more ways to play with his food when in combat, and sort of provides an importance of spacing too. This might all sound very simple, but in execution, the Werehog has legit become one of my favorite action games ever. The combat not only feels very well to play, it also feels very fast, which lends itself well to the fast-paced platforming segments that occur between these encounters. Despite what you may or may not think on the matter, the Werehog excels just as much at speed as the day stages do, and I also love these stages. Now, of course, in making something so drastically different to Sonic's typical affair, many are prone to dislike it. Many people will complain that the combat feels too mashy, or that these stages, and by extension the combat, can also be too easy. The reason I think that all of this is the case, however, is because I legit feel the night stages are more focused on the platforming segments I was talking about earlier. In my eyes, the combat was always supposed to be easy, so that no matter how the player handles each encounter, they're usually over quickly, so that the player can get back to the platforming segments. which is a good thing because it keeps the flow of the stages going. I also believe all this because the Werehog doesn't feature stuff like post-game super bosses, challenge modes, or challenge missions of any kind really. You just play the Werehog stages like you would any other Sonic stage, and that's to go fast through them. Plus the fact that this is also a game for kids too, which is probably the biggest driving factor for the Werehog's simplicity. And that's okay, because sometimes a simple combat system can be more effective too. Like hell, Final Fantasy 16 is one of my favorite games ever, and that game is so easy to play and understand at a base level as well. Not saying it's a bad thing in the slightest for a game's combat system to be simple either. Hell, I'd even go as far as to encourage it if it means more people can enjoy it. Regardless, all of this isn't to say that the Werehog doesn't gradually increase in challenge already. Enemies will gain more health as time goes on, and the game will start to introduce new enemies and enemy patterns. Hell, I won't lie, on this playthrough, I was kinda getting my ass handed to me a little bit here and there towards the end. Still, I wouldn't exactly call it hard though. The closest the Werehog has to challenge stages of any kind are these camera missions that are scattered around the night hubs. Here you have to take pictures of NPCs that might be under Dark Guy's influence, and then you fight some enemies. They're all really easy and you can't play them again after beating them. However, there is an achievement tied to them though. That quick, moment-to-moment gameplay is what the Werehog aims to be, just like the day stages. Of course not by the same means obviously, but all of this is why I still think that they are just as well designed as the day stages are. Much like literally everybody else, I'm not going to deny the fact that I do enjoy the day stages more than the night stages, but these stages are still just as fun to both play and master in my eyes. You'll go from doing shit like this.
That was a little fucked up. Oh my god, okay.
To doing shit like this. It's so cool. It's seriously a massive shame that Sonic Team would never try making a Sonic action game again. I think that what they have here makes for an incredible foundation, and had the Werehog got the chance to come back, I think they could have further refined it. Like with the day stages, maybe it was for the best that this never came back. If I had one genuine complaint with the Werehog, I think that the camera could be absolutely atrocious sometimes. Also, despite what I was saying of modding it out, I actually do really like the battle theme that the Werehog has too. I think that fits really well with the Werehog's general goofiness, even though there's only so many times I can hear before I start to lose my mind. Recompiled also lets you turn off the battle theme altogether if you want, though if you want to replace it like I did, I'll leave a link in the description to download the mod that I have if you want to use it for yourself. What I don't think a lot of people realize about the day and night stages is just how well they work together, both in terms of gameplay as well as storytelling. The most obvious example would be the EXP system. By playing the game, you can earn experience points that can then be used to upgrade Sonic or the Werehog's abilities. Sonic's speed and ring energy capacity, as well as the Werehog's combat, health, strength, block, and unleash capabilities. Doesn't matter who the EXP is earned by, it can be fed to the other side of the coin. The medals too. Everybody complains about these because they can drastically halt the game's progress if you don't have enough of them. Like yeah, I also believe that Adabat Day is way too expensive to access, but that's really the only problematic one though. My suggestion would be to try and pick up as many of these in the night stages as you can, since those aren't as fast paced as the day stages are, and also because they already reward exploration as is, so. Also because I am in the camp that intentionally playing the day stages slowly looking for them can be aggravating, especially considering some of the spots they can be in. However, despite that, I was always okay with the medals. For one, they create a sense of world building in the sense that, oh yeah, if you don't have enough medals, you can go back to a different part of the world, whether that be its stages or the hub areas, so you can grab some. But also because this is far from the only game that gates progression like this. It is a world adventure after all.
Planet-sized jigsaw puzzle? Sounds like a great excuse to see the world.
Plus, this also goes back to what I was saying of mastering the game's stages. In revisiting these stages looking for them, you might find more than just the medals themselves. As an example, before I went hunting for the medals, I had no idea about this shortcut in Empire City Day. Another great example being this bit here in Chunnan Night, where you can use these flying enemies to skip a couple combat sections. Two examples that greatly helped me out with the Chili Dog missions too. Also because when you know where the medals are, you'll just naturally pick them up while you're going along too. On this playthrough, I had achieved level 7 Sun, and almost level 7 Moon as well before it was time for Adabat Day. And this was without needing to visit any of the side acts too also. What helps too is that once you collect a medal, it's yours forever. You can die, you can quit out the stage, it will forever remain yours. If I have one complaint with the medals, I wish that they unlocked more stages beyond Adabat Day, because once you unlock that stage, the medals are pretty much pointless for the rest of the game. There are achievements tied to collecting them, but they don't unlock anything. Honestly, they should have made it where all the DLC levels could have made for extra unlockable stages for the post-game, further incentivizing the player to find them. Hell, even something like unlocking mini Sun and Moon medal trophies as decorations in Professor Pickle's lab would have been a cool way to celebrate you getting them all. One thing I really like about the medals too also, is how more Sun medals will be in the night stages, and more Moon medals will be in the day stages. Similarly, the day hubs will only have Moon medals in them, while the night hubs will only have Sun medals in them. In terms of gameplay, I'm glad that's the case, since it makes it a lot easier to collect more Sun medals, the one of which you have to collect more of throughout the way. All kinda goes back to what I was saying of both gameplay styles feeding into each other. Have any of y'all played Persona? Y'all know how the RPG elements and the life sim elements feed into each other in those games? That's sorta how I feel with Sonic and the Werehog's dynamic with each other, to be honest. Albeit not to the same level of extent, but still. I kinda mentioned this earlier with Sonic's unlockable abilities, but I love how the level select hubs sort of act as a preview for the stages residing in them. Some examples include how in Empire City, you need to destroy these generators in order to access the stage, and then you do it more in said stage. Another one being in Spagonia, you have to wall jump onto this grind rail to then stomp onto a stage that features more grind rails and wall jumping. Something I also really like about these hubs too, is that some areas in them require a certain version of Sonic in order to access them properly, due to it being restricted on the other form's end somehow, thus requiring the player to switch between the two forms using this switch in order to explore it. I also just love really small details, like how the Werehog stages have different opening jingles based on what area you're in. Something I don't think I've ever seen anybody mention also, is that sometimes these stages will have loose storytelling in of themselves. Excellent example. In Missouri Day, you're climbing this tree at the end of the stage, and then immediately after you're chasing Eggman on the top of said tree. Another example being in Holoska Night. The stage ends showing a long, narrow, icy hallway that Sonic then goes through to fight this boss. At the end of Adabat Day, you land at the entrance of this temple to then immediately fight this boss within it. Speaking of the bosses, I do want to give a spotlight to them real fast. I admittedly don't really have anything of note to say on them, but I think that they're all cool and unique in their own ways, and by no means will I say any of them are necessarily unfun or poorly designed. These bosses also make for an excellent means of showing off Sonic's aura farming capabilities while you're at it too.
But playtime's over, pal! Go! Yes!
Plus, these boss stages also make for an excellent way to grab medals if need be too. I also really enjoy the abundance of the NPCs within the hubs, as they make each region of the game feel very much alive and lived in. Similarly to those camera missions I was saying with the Werehog, a couple of them will offer side quests for the players to complete. They're essentially pseudo challenge stages with a unique twist applied to them. One cool detail, speaking of which, is that you can buy souvenirs from each of the different regions of the game, and then give them to Professor Pickle, which I would advise doing if you're struggling with the medals, since he will give you some for giving him some souvenirs. All of these factors really build the game's world up as an actual living place, rather than just generic game location C or some shit along those lines. Which is a good thing, especially since all the major areas in the game are based on real-world places after all. Well, except for one area, that is. Well, Eggman finally did it. He finally achieved his utopia. And it is a lot darker than anywhere else that Sonic visits on this world adventure of his. This stage further adds on to why I believe that Sonic and the Werehog work so well together. Despite what many people will argue, I genuinely believe that this is one of the best final levels ever. This stage has it all. Grind rails, QTEs, skydiving, bobsledding, 2D sections, Sonic Stomp, wall jump, air boost, the ring dash, ledge grabbing, balance beams, poles used for swinging and climbing, loose puzzle solving, combat, The whole shebang. If this all sounds familiar, then that's because it's supposed to be, as Eggman Land was built as a final test for everything the player has done prior to reach this point, while also being able to effectively weave both Sonic and the Werehog's gameplay styles effectively. Many people will complain that this stage is too long or too hard, but that's sort of the point. Plus, I also think that this stage is super unique in that it is the only stage where you play as both Sonic and the Werehog interchangeably. Having one stage that ties everything together on both ends, as the start to the end game, was and still is super cool, and with a stage like this, mastering it can be super effective. That's also not mentioning the various different paths and shortcuts you can take on this stage too. Like hell, I was getting footage for this stage, and I just casually discovered an entire section I'd literally never even seen before. It was sick. I'm no expert by any means, but I can clear this stage in roughly 13 minutes or so now, and I have fun doing it every time. Despite that, I still would not call this an easy stage. But that's okay. Hell, even when I had no idea how to play this stage, I was always cool with it for the exact reasons I just described a second ago. Plus, this is also a one-off stage too. It's not like you have to play a gauntlet of these long, challenging stages or anything, which kinda bumps it up for me a little bit, to be honest. Speaking of stages I'm not an expert on, I figure I'll also briefly mention the Tails missions too, since I'm not really sure where else to do so. During the game, both at the start, as well as right before Eggman Land, you play 2 automated missions where you press buttons that are prompted on screen. Yeah, they are basically just QTE fest, but they're not that long though. Stages that, funnily enough, also reward mastery in their own ways. Like seriously, how the hell did I get an S rank on this stage? I was just trying to get the achievement for the stage. Regardless, I'd honestly say I do kind of enjoy them in the sense that 1, they are a decent enough distraction, but also there's not many of them at all, only 2 of them. These stages definitely also add to what I was saying with world building earlier, as the first one kinda sets the story in motion a little bit as you fly to Spagonia to see Professor Pickle, while the other one builds up Eggman Land with its darker skies and music playing in the background on your way there. I'll give Unleash haters a point here admittedly though, because I won't deny when I say that the first hour of the game can definitely be off-putting for first timers, partly due to this first stage. In the first hour you play a night stage, into this first Tails mission, then immediately into another night stage. That's also not to mention all the cutscenes too. Of course, you can also skip the cutscenes if you wish, or like I plan on doing going forward, enabling a mod that skips the Tails missions outright. But I can still see how all this can drag on for newcomers though. In the end, I think that they're ultimately harmless, but if they weren't in the game at all, I wouldn't be bothered by it. Like Eggman Land, if there were a ton of these kinds of stages scattered throughout the whole game, I think that would make them a bit less special in my eyes. By no means will I say that Unleashed has the best story ever written or anything, but what's presented here is still of high tier quality, especially for Sonic standards. I know everyone has talked about and seen this intro millions of times, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to as well. One of the best opening cutscenes ever made, and one that gives me goosebumps every time I watch it. First of all, yes, this intro is unbelievably cracked out of its mind visually. Every shot looks like it'd be in a fucking movie. This shit is on par with stuff like Final Fantasy CGI cutscenes of the time. Truly phenomenal stuff. Not just the intro either, but some of the endgame cutscenes, as well as the whole game in general, is visually incredible, both for its time and even today's standards. Maybe a bit too much though. But hey, that's an issue of the past, thankfully. Anyway, I think that this intro is incredible, and just how excellently it sets the tone of the game's story. One thing I sometimes think about is just how well this intro builds Sonic and Eggman's characters, as well as the dynamic between the two. Also because if you've never played a Sonic game before, and don't know anything about these characters, then this intro is here to lay the groundwork effectively. Sonic is presented as fast, cocky, and powerful, and if it weren't for Black Knight, I'd probably also say that this is my favorite characterization of him too.
Yeah, this is the real me. Pretty cool, huh?
Eggman, on the other hand, is presented as desperate, but also conniving. I think Sonic going super during this truly sends a much deeper message also. There was always something to me about Sonic putting Eggman on his literal knees while being at his absolute strongest state, before moments later being immediately stripped down to what was considered his weakest state at the time, with no hope left for Sonic as he and the also weakened Chaos Emeralds are sent flying towards a broken Earth with a now ancient darkness having been resurrected. Speaking of which, I love this shot so fucking much, dude. The shot itself, the music, everything you just watched unfold, the fucking title fade in, cinema and a half if I've ever seen it. This is an intro that screams confidence in the product that you are about to experience. Give this shit an Oscar. Truly legendary stuff. Eggman ain't playing around this time. Deadass, had he not sent the emeralds down with Sonic, he would've fucking won. From here, Sonic meets up with Tails, as well as his new amnesiac companion Chip, and they are then tasked with restoring the Chaos Emeralds by visiting these temples, thereby also restoring the power to the Earth and putting it back together. During this process, we learn that Chip is actually the light to Dark Gaia's, well, darkness, and that both of them had been resurrected way too early. Chip's job is to keep the world's safety in check by making sure Dark Gaia is put down every once in a while, and unfortunately, Eggman broke this cycle by resurrecting Dark Gaia too early. Sonic proceeds to help Chip with the last Gaia temple located beneath Eggman Land before facing off with Eggman himself. Then it's time for the big man himself downstairs, Dark Gaia, who saps the darkness from Sonic, thus restoring him to normal, and from here, the final battle ensues.
This is my escape. I'm running through this world and I'm not looking back. 'Cause I know I can go where no one's ever gone and I'm not looking back. But how will I know when I get there? And how will I know when to leave?
Anyway, Sonic eventually channels the Chaos Emeralds and goes super to finish him off, once and for all.
The possibilities are never ending. I see it, and now it's all within my reach. And the possibility, I see it now. It's always been inside of me, and now I feel so free. And the possibility.
With the world saved, Sonic is then sent back to the surface, while Chip sits behind, ready to continue his job of protecting the Earth.
And so we'll carry on. My time to shine has come. I feel it. As fast as I can go, straight to the top. I know you'll see it.
With that, the credits roll, and Sonic's world adventure has come to its conclusion. What a game. And if all that endgame stuff seems sudden, then yeah, that's one issue I have with the game's story. There's a beginning and end, but no middle. An issue that I feel could have been alleviated had Chip instead restored some memories at each temple instead of all at once. Another remedy could have been making those unlockable animated cutscenes of Sonic and Chip hanging out had been sprinkled into the campaign instead, rather than as bonus content, as a means of further fleshing out their dynamic. That isn't to say that the two don't have a good amount of banter and chemistry already, but still. Despite that, what they do have here works pretty well from both a storytelling and thematic standpoint. Despite the much darker tone of the general plot, a lot of stuff that happens during it is pretty lighthearted, or even outright comedic. It really does feel like a Saturday morning cartoon to some extent, which in a sense is probably the closest the game has to a middle third of the plot, if not outright intentionally trying to be. From a thematic standpoint though, I think there's a lot to unpack however. I think one theme that can be taken from this is that it doesn't matter what's on the outside, but what's on the inside that counts. Despite Sonic looking like this Mr. Monster guy half the time, he still very much means only the purest of intentions. His actions and looks might be deceiving, but he is very much always doing what is right. The other being that no matter what, you should never give up. Generally, no matter what happens, you should always keep your head held up high and keep pushing forward. Things might be hard now, but the happiness that lies in store will make the struggle more worth it. Struggles of which being necessary for personal growth and reflection too. Like I said, Sonic was literally stripped of all of his power and was turned into a form that he resented due to how others may perceive him. He had to give up his new friend in the end, but these things didn't stop him from pushing onwards. The rising sunset at the end here represents the start of a new chapter for Sonic, and he knows that too as he begins to run off into the wind, ready for what's next. A mentality of which has made it easier for me to accept and move on from my past hardships, and continue living each day to the fullest, no matter what happens. A message also pushed by the game's main theme, endless possibilities. Despite the credits rolling, Sonic's journey is not quite over yet, as he would need to grab a couple snacks on the way out first. Alright, here we go. The part of the game I've been waiting to talk about. If you take nothing else from this video, please let this be the part that resonates the most. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce the Chili Dog Guys. I would go as far as to say that they represent everything good and right about this game's design philosophies. If you've been paying attention so far, you have heard me say stuff along the lines of, these stages are fun to master. Well, here it is right here. These guys and their missions are the key driver for player improvement and mastery execution of the game stages. You could argue that the medals are as well, but I don't think they do as well in the sense that if you only care about collecting them, you just kinda grab them and then think nothing of it afterwards. These guys actively encourage the player to get better at these stages through missions that progressively become more challenging as you complete them. Call it a hunch, but you can argue that even the entire main theme of the game is pushing you to do so as well. These chili dog guys are in every region of the game, including Eggman Land, at both day and night, and they have the player complete a variety of tasks within their respective stages. For Sonic, you have to beat a certain number of enemies, reach the goal with a certain number of rings, and beat the stage in an allotted time limit. The Werehog also has the time limit ones, as well as missions that limit the total amount of health the player has to work with. You have to beat each of these mission types 3 times, with each type only getting harder with each one completed. That means you'll be playing each day stage a minimum of at least 9 times, and each night stage at least 6 times in order to complete these missions. Except for Eggman Land, which only has the time limit ones. So for Eggman Land, you only have to beat it a minimum of 3 times. On achievement guide sites for this game, Sonic Unleashed is often labeled as a whopping 9 out of 10 difficulty. And I'd like to imagine that these missions are the main suspect as to why that is. And the main reason for their difficulty is that if you die at all, you have to restart the entire mission again. Oddly enough though, part of me believes that this was somehow both intentional and unintentional. Unintentional because a lot of these challenges give you plenty of leeway to complete them, even on the level 3 versions of them. Also because of those enemy missions with Day Sonic. Why the hell should I have to restart with missions like those? However, I also believe that all of this was intentional in the sense that the game is demanding excellence and perfection from the player. A death basically just equates to the game saying, "Get your ass up, son, and try that again." And this is where the replay value I was mentioning earlier comes into play. The game will harden these stages into your mind. The game wants you to become the best player in the fucking world. You are going to rise to the heavens and master these stages, and you are going to like it. You are going to play these stages over and over again until there is no perfecting left to do. Upon which you will be banging out S ranks left and right like there's no tomorrow. And I loved every fucking second of doing so. Before doing all this, I was always saying shit like, man, I wish I was good at these stages, they're all so sick. Well, here it is right here. Stick around and maybe I'll give you guys some advice as a former novice myself on how you can beat these effectively yourself. Now, all of this isn't to say that Sonic Unleashed is the only game to ever do stuff like this. A franchise such as Crash Bandicoot also rewards replay value in very similar ways. Crash, similar to Unleashed, sees the player completing time trials where death isn't an option either. However, in the case of the N. Sane Trilogy, to complete each game, you only need to get the gold relics for each stage, the second highest tier reward next to the platinum relics. And honestly, all 3 games in the trilogy are not very difficult to do that in. It wasn't too bad to reach the gold relics in most stages. Hell, sometimes I even just kinda got the platinum without even trying, to be honest. Hell, even the initially removed Stormy Ascent level isn't that hard either, due to the insane leeway that stage gives. Now if we're talking about Crash 4, that's an entirely different story. That game wants you to journey to the 10th circle of hell and back in order to complete it. And that's maybe a conversation for another day, assuming I ever decide to make the mistake of completing it, that is. Anyway, in the case of Unleashed though, my point is that the game wants to drive these stages into your skull by having you beat them multiple times under different circumstances without dying. Even if you coincidentally beat a later version of the mission's requirement, you still have to go back and do it regardless. A philosophy that I hadn't really seen prior to completing this game myself, but is one that I have only embraced as time goes on. If I had one gripe with these chili dog missions, I wish that there was some amount of focus on the side acts as well. I'm totally fine with it just being the main acts of each area, as they are the most fun to play after all, but it definitely feels like it diminishes the value of the side acts to some extent. But regardless of any of that, there will never be a greater feeling of watching the game build up your results with the jingle that plays, only for it to start to fade out once you see what rank you got. I fucking love it every single time, especially when you know that your performance was of S rank quality. Now as promised, I'ma help you achieve such perfection yourself. Now you might be asking, why am I willing to help you out with all this? Well, for one, from what I've tried checking, no one has made any form of video guide on how to do these stages effectively, other than just showing footage of them beating the missions. But also because I myself did not find these missions too terribly difficult, if I'm being honest. In comparison to that 9 out of 10 difficulty shown on some of the achievement sites, I'd honestly give it like a 5 or a 6 personally. Plus, I'm just a nice guy in general, and I'm always willing to help a homie out.
Do I need a reason to want to help out a friend?
Some things I want to establish before we start. All of this assumes that your stats are maxed out. I wouldn't by any means say doing so is mandatory, but it can definitely help out. If you do wish to do so, I recommend using this bug in Chunnan to farm infinite rings. By boosting into these rings, and then walking around where they were, you can pick up an infinite amount of rings, and then you can use these rings to buy and feed chili dogs to Sonic. Don't be too worried about it though, as when I completed this game on Series X, I sort of naturally attained max stats just by doing these missions. If you don't, consider using this bug to help out afterwards. Or if you don't want to be as boring, you can also play through the DLC levels if you have access to those. Honestly, I kinda wish this game had a New Game Plus, which would definitely have made grinding loads easier, to be honest. While you're at it, I also wish this game had multiple save files to work with. Regardless, max stats can help out with these missions. Another bit of note are a few moves at the Werehog's disposal that can help out a lot, and I'll mention them as we go along. Just know I'll be saying these moves in Xbox notation also, if that means anything to those who use PlayStation controllers for this game. Try to skip or ignore as many encounters as you possibly can, speaking of which. I would also advise doing Eggman last. Trust me, just like what I was saying about the stage itself earlier, you want to save the long stage housing all the real challenges for last. It'll make it a lot easier. I'm also not really going to say anything about the enemy missions or the limited health missions, since they're pretty self-explanatory, mainly the time trials and the ring missions. I'd also advise not tackling all 9 day missions or all 6 night missions in an area back to back as a means of reducing potential burnout. If you don't care about any of the advice I'm about to give for the stages ahead, skip to this timestamp for the rest of the video. For those who do care, however, let's get started. These are probably the easiest set of missions you can complete, and I don't really have anything too noteworthy to say about them. Be careful of the spikes when grinding on these rails, and immediately after, be ready to jump into this rainbow ring. When you get here, make sure to jump over this, whatever you call it, input direction decider? I don't know. Do a homing attack onto the spring, boost, and then do this narrow platforming upon landing to skip some platforming below. One thing I'll note about those real fast, speaking of which, is that despite what they might display, the inputs will be the same every time. A will send you up, B will send you down, X will send you forward. Speaking of QTEs, if you're struggling with them, consider pause buffering during them so you can make sure you don't mess up the inputs being displayed. Regardless, the rest of the stage is pretty simple, and I hope this also helps you achieve the Blue Meteor achievement as well. I don't really have anything of note to say about this stage, just move fast and skip encounters when you can. You'll see me doing this move a lot also. While dashing, jump and then press Y to do the spinning attack. This is the fastest means of traversal that the Werehog has at its disposal. There's also this move I did here while in the tightrope section. While in the air, press XXA and Sonic will do this forward spinning attack. Note if you jump once, then do the move, you'll still have the double jump. If you double jump, then use the move, you won't be able to jump afterwards. Regardless, try to bring an Unleash meter to the final battle and you're looking pretty gold. Also, fun detail I noticed while recording this stage. Y'all remember that cutscene of Tails flying away from all the Dark Gaia here? Well, here he is watching you fight them. Somehow I never noticed this before, but it's a really cool detail regardless. Despite not being as hard as some of the other stages, I definitely wouldn't consider myself as good at this one when compared to them, however. When you reach the temple, be ready to jump here into a rainbow ring, and then immediately again right after onto this grind rail, and then be ready for this light ring dash immediately following that. When you get here, make sure to press A to take this route. Be ready to perform some QTs when you get to the tree, and when you reach this segment, try a boost over all this platforming, and after that, you should be good to go. Here we go, one of my favorite night stages out of all of them. Also not too challenging either. At the start of the stage, after you go through this door, try skipping this encounter by using the Werehog's Shoryuken move to climb up these platforms easier. Perform the Shoryuken with XXA, and then do XXA again in midair to get up here. When you get to this part, use these platforms to avoid combat below. Afterwards, you should be good to go. Just like earlier, line up the blocks here in a way where you can do that Shoryuken strat I was saying earlier, and make sure to have Unleash available going into this final encounter to make it go by much faster. Alright, here we go. Probably one of the harder ones admittedly, but still fucking awesome regardless. Be sure to take these grind rails at the start into this grind rail immediately after. When you get here, jump as soon as you hit this checkpoint to skip a small little section, and then be ready to ring dash right after. When you reach the freefall section, veer hard right to where there's no spikes and then hold X to descend faster. When you reach this section, be ready to homing attack some enemies into a light ring dash in order to skip the clock tower segment. And after the grind rail from the top, be careful of this first robot here, as if you're not careful, Duke can easily bitch slap your ass if you run straight towards it. Then be ready to hop between some grind rails here. When you get to this QTE ramp, fail it as it is faster to just run here than actually doing the QTEs. Be careful of the lasers in the final section here, as some of their lines can be quite tricky to deal with. And try to hit back as many enemies as you can, not just for the enemy missions requirement, but also because you can just outright kill these bastards by doing this. Hopefully everything goes well and you reach the end safe and sound. I really don't have anything on this one, to be honest. Like Apodos, this one ain't really that hard either, but doesn't mean it isn't fun to do though. Just play fast, skip encounters whenever possible, and save your unleash for the mini bosses. For me personally, this is deadass probably the hardest of the day stages, and it's due to one section we'll talk about here soon. At the start, be ready to boost into this red ring, and then immediately followed by these rings. Hopefully by the time you reach here, you won't be having to wait for this platform to make a rotation for you to get onto it. Try to take this cheeky shortcut here before this ramp, and when you see your boost stop, air boost into these red rings. Be ready shortly after to jump into some homing attacks, and then a ring dash. Here, turn around to homing attack something off screen so you can take this route instead. Alright, time for the hardest part. Instantly homing attack onto everything you see, including this robot. Then just casually wait a second for the platform so you can continue onward, if it's not readily accessible. Following this, be careful when doing this section, and be cautious of this enemy that you need to homing attack onto, because it can shock you and ruin it all. Just be on the lookout for the bombs in the next section when running from the robot, and you should be good. Also, side note, shouts to the stretch at the end of the stage. Actual drug in my veins, I love it so much. Due to how strict the time limit is, this is probably one of the more intimidating sets of missions, but thankfully one shortcut will alleviate the whole thing. Again, play the stage fast, avoid encounters whenever possible, until you reach this part. Make sure when swinging from here, you grab these enemies here in order to skip some encounters below, plus score some medals too if you don't already have those. When doing the health missions though, be careful of this dragon road, get it, that you walk on shortly afterwards, as this fire can hurt pretty bad. Anyway, after that, you can skip this encounter by pulling this lever, and that's the end of the stage. Not bad at all. This is far from being overly difficult, but this is still one that I definitely struggle with here and there, especially at the start. Blame the NPCs on that, SMH. Anyway, as the mission starts, I'd advise taking this light ring dash path. I'm pretty sure it is slightly slower than sticking to the ground, but it's definitely a lot safer, a lot cooler, and there's also a medal up here if you need it too. Be ready to immediately drift into the shortcut. I mess this one up all the time, but don't be too upset if you don't do it perfectly. Shortly after, be ready to hit this sequence to skip a load of platforming underneath. When you get here, be ready to jump and then homing attack to skip some platforming beneath. Once you escape the city, if you will, and then reach this part, be ready to jump here to skip a lot of platforming underneath. Fail another QTE real fast, and now a part that I'm still yet to fully solve on my own end. I released the gas for a second to homing attack these enemies here, as a means of safely avoiding these falling pillars. Afterwards, be careful not to accidentally homing attack this Eggman spring, and then go up here. Be ready to homing attack these enemies, and then shortly after, be ready to jump into this red ring, and then air boost to skip some platforming below. This next part, if you want to play it cool for a second like earlier, go ahead. Or you can temporarily become God for a second and do this. The rest of the stage should be pretty self-explanatory, and hopefully this helps you get the speeding ticket achievement for the stage too. Alright, time for quite possibly the funniest stage in the whole game. Round start, perform this trick to get out of bounds. To do this, press X, X, Y, and then block at a certain point during the Y part to be able to clip out of bounds. This trick has a lot of applications beyond just this stage, but I've really only learned how to use it here to be honest. Anyway, once you're out here, be careful as a lot of this area isn't solid and you can fall into the void. If you are careful though, you can jump to here and then do the add bounds trick again to get back in bounds, and then a third time at this door to basically skip an ass load of encounters and puzzles. If you have a hard time hitting it in this spot, don't feel too bad. It is a little bit finicky, but at least the run back isn't long at all if you mess it up. Regardless, the rest of the stage is pretty much free. Just be careful of those fire enemies when doing those health missions. Those guys hurt. And also, if you feel like it, you can also use the out of bounds trick to access an unused part of the stage that would later get used for the DLC. You can't go very far here, but it's still cool regardless. And don't worry, you can open the door from this side, so don't worry about getting stuck here. So yeah, that's the funniest stage in the game. Now before you say something along the lines of, "Oh, that's cheating," look man, it's in the game, and because of that, I'm allowed to use it, okay? If you don't want to take my advice, then go ahead, I guess, I don't know. Welcome to probably my worst stage out of all of the main acts. Why is that? It's because I don't play it as much as the others, Lamau. It's admittedly my least favorite one, but that doesn't mean it's a bad stage though. Like Apodos, this one ain't too bad at all, honestly. Make sure to take this shortcut here at the start. Then, once you reach this section, be sure to wall jump into this rainbow ring to skip a lot of platforming below. The rest of the stage is pretty self-explanatory. However, be careful of these robots in the final bobsled section though. This right here can kill a ring run, and I do get hit here admittedly, so keep that in mind. Otherwise, not too bad. Also, fun fact, you can trick while on the bobsled by pressing X. This is deadass probably my favorite night stage due to just how fun all the platforming is in all of this. Right at the beginning, if you so choose, you can skip this small puzzle by doing 2 wall clips here. This is kinda finicky to do, so if you're not comfortable doing this, just do it the normal way. Once you get here a little bit later, you can use that Shoryuken strat from earlier to skip some platforming. Be sure to take this shortcut here, and then you're pretty much good to go. As always, be sure to have some Unleash for this final encounter, so you can get through it faster. Like I said earlier, had it not been for this shortcut at the start of the stage, this would definitely have been the hardest one. I deadass remember doing this without it, and I had like less than a second of time remaining. It was crazy. Anyway, take this shortcut at the start, and then immediately after, I just come to a halt to make sure you take this part as safely as possible without falling off. When you reach this part, be ready to stomp through this glass to get up here. Anyway, after another set of lane switching sections with some robots, be ready to take this underpath here, and then jump onto this grind rail immediately after. Also, be careful of these enemies or you'll be dying like how my dumbass does right here. Fuck these enemies. Anyway, after that, you should be golden for the rest of the stage. Not bad at all. Welcome to another one of my favorite night stages. When you reach this part, you can use the Shoryuken strat to skip the entire balance beam section, along with all the encounters tied to it. Then immediately after, you can do this strat to skip some enemies and having to pull this lever. If you're not comfortable doing this, you don't have to go for this, it's just really cool. The rest of the stage should go about how it would normally, just make sure to bring some Unleash to make light work of the mini boss up here, and you're good. Here we go. I saved the best for last. The best Sonic level ever made. Despite being one of the harder stages for many, the time they give you for this stage is very generous. Like here's me finishing with like 1.5 minutes left on the timer. Anyway, take the right path here at the start, and when you get to the grind rail here, try a boost during as much of it as you can, and then make sure to take the upper route here by homing attacking these guys. Immediately after, press A to take this route here, and then be ready to jump through these red rings. Immediately after, be ready to jump through this fence to take this route. If you're not comfortable doing this, there's a small route on the left here that is a lot safer than doing it the badass way. Also, don't be too upset if you get hit in this section right after with the laser bastards. Sometimes the alignment of these fire attacks can just ruin it, but otherwise, do the same as what I was saying for the other lane switching segments. Afterwards, you'll reach a fork in the road. I'm not sure if this right route is faster or not, but this is definitely safer than the left one in my opinion. After being chased by that robot again, be ready for this section. If you want to do it the badass way, consider drifting here. Otherwise, you can take this path here, which is a lot safer than doing it my way. Shortly after, we arrive at my favorite stretch in the entire game. Be careful of these springs that can flip over to be spikes, and then be ready for a homing attack into a boost, into QTEs, into a ring dash. Be ready to jump over this gap and then slide under here. When you reach this part, be ready to jump into these rainbow rings. If you're having a hard time timing it, try doing what I do, and that is to boost it 3 times and then jump. After this, the rest of the stage is pretty simple. Just be careful on your way up though. Unlike the daytime, this stage isn't too high octane, but that's fine. While going along doing your usual werehog things, just be careful of these waterfalls. When you get here, you can skip some enemies and a small puzzle by doing that XXA attack mid-air to land on this platform early. Otherwise, the rest should be smooth sailing. Alright, here we go. Our final destination. Also, hey, welcome to the only part of the video that I recorded on my Xbox instead of Recomp. Hope you all like my new capture card. Anyway, be ready to adapt everything you've done so far into one big amalgamation. They give you a fuck ton of time to complete this stage, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't be cautious. Because of that, as well as the fact that it's only the time trials, Eggman Land definitely isn't as hard as some of the other time trials, I feel. Also because a lot of the stuff you do in this stage definitely doesn't feel as challenging as it would be in some of the other stages. But I wouldn't exactly call it easy either. It is still a massive endurance test after all. Also, I don't know about y'all, but to me the 2D sections were always the scariest part of the stage, due to these Eggman platforms that if they push towards you, you die instantly. Tread carefully, and make sure to try and skip enemy encounters whenever possible, as always. Round start, be ready to jump onto these grind rails to take a massive set of shortcuts. Try to take this wall jumping shortcut here if you can, which leads directly into the bobsled section. This right here is the scariest part of the stage in my opinion. First of all, be sure to succeed this QTE ramp, and be careful with the platforming that follows immediately after. And then get ready for another series of QTEs, but after that, the rest is gold. When you reach this part, be sure to go right to skip a werehog section to end up here. Now here's something extremely risky you can do here, but I wouldn't advise it. You can clip out of bounds here, and then while out of bounds, land on this pipe to basically skip the rest of the stage. However, if you mess it up, you fall into the void and have to restart the stage. When you reach this part, you can literally skip this entire part just by jumping off to the side here. Gotta be the easiest skip in the game, and anybody can do it at home. After this, the rest of the stage is pretty much free. Just be sure to bring Unleash for all the mini-bosses at the end here, and you're golden. And like I said earlier, if done well, this stage can be beaten pretty fast. Like here, I beat the stage in roughly 11.5 minutes. See, I told y'all the stage wasn't that long. So, you've done it. You have conquered all the Chili Dog missions, you have collected all the medals, you have beaten Dark Gaia and restored the Earth, and you have successfully seen everything the game has to offer. What's your reward for doing so? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. There is no reward for completing this game other than the Platinum Trophy itself. The true reward in the end is the massive amount of self-pride in the journey that you, the player, just undertook to do all of this successfully. And that's okay. Most of the time it isn't about the destination, but the journey you take to get there. Just like life itself, this is a journey of self-improvement, reflection, and mastery of all the challenges the game has thrown at you to reach this point. You faced countless deaths, but you persevered until the very end nevertheless. And in my eyes, that is the game's true message from both a gameplay and narrative standpoint. You will face impossible challenges. You will experience constant ups and downs that will destroy you mentally. But no matter what, as long as you keep pushing forward, that's what matters most. And just like Sonic in the end here, you keep your head held up high and move on to whatever challenges life has in store next. However, unlike Sonic though, you yourself have a long-time legacy to fulfill following this journey, as Sonic himself did not last much longer after this one. Despite Unleashed's massive financial success, this game's critical failure would only further feed into Sonic's downfall at the time. Sonic would get one more game a few months later on the Wii, but that wasn't enough, for it was both a critical and commercial failure. As a result, this series would ultimately end there and would disappear with Edge Race. Sonic's legacy lives on through games like Super Smash Bros., but in terms of his own series, it was over. I think even Sonic himself knew that his series was on its last legs.
Every world has its end. I know that's kind of sad, but that's why we gotta live life to the fullest in the time we have. At least, that's what I figure.
Nah, I'm just kidding. There'd be plenty more Sonic after this one, and his legacy has only continued to grow stronger ever since. One way being that a lot of fans have started to appreciate this game more in recent years. Everybody hated it back then, but now this is considered as an upper echelon title in the series. In 2021, Sonic Unleashed would receive an update on Xbox Series X that allowed the game to run at a much higher frame rate, a locked 60 FPS. This shit made me want to get a Series X, and I eventually would get one a few years ago. And then way later in 2025, Unleashed would receive an unofficial PC port with loads of quality of life features. In terms of official releases, however, this game is still locked on the hardware it was released for, the PS3 and the Xbox 360. Though like I said, with it being added to the Series X backwards compatibility line, Sonic Team would give it an FPS boost. This might be a controversial thing to say, but after seeing how Sonic's latest remasters have been going, Generations especially, part of me honestly hopes this game doesn't receive an official remaster or port of any kind, to be honest.
I can't believe there's 2 of me.
Couldn't have done it better myself.
How did this happen?
Without the time stones?
Unless it includes a new game alongside it, I guess. Regardless though, Recompiled has not only made the game much more accessible, but it also allows for the ability to mod the game much easier than it ever was before. Mods that I want to give a spotlight to real fast are those that aim to further refine and expand upon the Werehog's combat. While I do prefer the base Werehog compared to them personally, I still think that they are incredibly well made, and they can definitely add a lot more replay value to those who want to continue messing with the Werehog even further. I personally recommend Foreign Input System, as well as Like a Werehog, and I'll leave them linked in the description if you want to check them out. Regardless, this game's recompiled release has blown the doors wide open for other 360 games receiving recompiled ports of their own too. It was and still is one of the most impressive things I've ever seen in my life. Hell, I think even Sega themselves knows about this massive resurgence in Sonic Unleashed. Like, dude, you can play as the fucking Werehog in Crossworlds. This is incredible. Y'all have no idea how happy I am that this game is getting a second season, speaking of which. This game is also goated beyond human comprehension. But that's a conversation for another day. Anyway, I won't lie, however, when I say that Recompiled definitely made my Series X purchase age terribly to some extent. But that's okay, because had it not been for my Series X, I would not have been able to experience another phenomenal game that I would go through not too long after this one. A game that would only further push and reinforce a lot of mentalities and game design philosophies that I had learned and realized from my experience with Unleashed. But that's a conversation for another day. Hopefully. Regardless of any of that though, Sonic Unleashed still remains the fucking GOAT of the franchise, tenfold. Easily, and I mean easily, the best Sonic game ever made. And no matter where Sonic as a series goes next, may this game, and the experiences we had with it, forever remain in our hearts for the rest of our days. Life has an endless amount of possibilities waiting for you. Don't take that for granted. Embrace life, keep pushing forward, no matter what happens.
Hey, Sonic!
This is my escape. I'm running through this world and I'm not looking back. 'Cause I know I can go where no one's ever gone and I'm not looking back. But how will I know when I get there? And how will I know when to leave? We've all gotta start from somewhere, and it's right there for me. The possibilities are never ending.
Hey, if you're here at the end of the video, then I truly appreciate you for watching this until the end. Even if you completely disagree with everything I say in this video, I'm still glad that you were willing to hear me out. This is probably the hardest and most I've ever worked on a video, and that's only going to become more true with each of these video essays going forward too. I'm still trying to learn how to do all this video essay stuff properly, so I'd appreciate feedback as well, so that way I can continue improving with each of them down the road. I'd also appreciate if you considered subbing to the channel, so that way you don't miss out on anything new. I'd also appreciate if you shared the video around, especially since knowing YouTube, they're probably going to kill this video like they do the rest of mine, so hey, it'd be nice if all these words could reach more ears, you know? And hey, if you enjoyed those old clips of me bumbling like an idiot in this game, be sure to check out the full video from when I streamed this game a few years ago.
Oh, it's on his head. Oh, okay, that's why. That froze me too, are you serious? Come on, dude.
Hopefully this video is coming out either around or on Sonic's 35-year anniversary also, which in that case, happy anniversary, Sonic! Here's to more down the line. Anyway, that's all I got really. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace out.